Hello everyone, this is Darcenovia here. This is my review on the fourth book of The Wheel of Time, Shadow Rising. This is the longest book in the series that I've read up until this point, and it took me the longest to get through due to the amount of detail that Robert Jordan gets into regarding, the locations that characters at, their clothing, him describing what goes on in a battle scene. It's like, this is extensive detail. And the other novels, they have them as well, but this takes it, to the next level. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just saying that I feel like this is the novel where, I feel like this is where Robert Jordan really starts to actually get into great detail about, what certain things look like. And some people, don't like that. It's one of the criticisms of the series that it takes too long to describe what's going on in a scene. I don't mind that. Then again, I've read, A Song of Ice and Fire, so I'm used to that sort of thing. This, I feel like, is the novel that Robert Jordan really comes to his own with this series. Because, at first, it kind of feels like something you would read in Lord of the Rings. A group of travelers traveling to a place to combat a great evil, and the Dark One, being kind of a lot like Sauron and his servants, kind of being a lot like, the orcs and the Uruk-hai and all that other things that we know from Lord of the Rings. I feel like is where Robert Jordan started to really establish the series' identity separate from, Lord of the Rings. And don't get me wrong, I think it started in Dragon Reborn pretty much, but it took it to a completely different level. The amount of stuff that happens in this book, it doesn't feel like a waste of time. I think it's well paced, and I can't imagine this book being any shorter than it is. There is a good amount of storylines to follow, though. There's Rand's storyline, and there's Nynaeve's, Perrin, and a few others. So you have multiple protagonists in this book, like you would in A Song of Ice and Fire. But I feel like in this case, it's easier to follow because there isn't as many characters that point of view that you follow. Though a lot of major stuff happens. One, we learn about Lewis Theron and who he is in this novel, and we get to learn more about the Aiel's past and who were they. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry, fantasy purists out there, if I pronounced it wrong. That's what it sounded like to me. The Ablin seat gets, the current one in the first few novels, unseated, replaced with a red Aja. The storyline that continued from, that started with book 3, with Nynaeve, Elaine, and Egwene pursuing the Black Aja, that continues in here. Perrin's storyline, I feel like, starts to take off and become separate from the rest of them. So there's multiple different storylines going on multiple different locations. And if you haven't read any fantasy novels up to this point, it may be a little jarring at first, having that many storylines going on around the same time. But it doesn't feel, like too much to me. I think each, character's stories, are easy to follow. And the writing style, I feel like, is easy to actually digest. I know if you haven't, got into the series, by at this point, I doubt I'm going to be able to convince you to continue, reading these novels, after this one or the one before it. But I encourage you to press on and continue. Because the Shadow Rising, I feel like Robert Jordan starts to establish, his world, that's vastly different from J.R.R. Tolkien. I don't think his world from what I've read so far, is as deep as Tolkien's or George R. R. Martin's, but I feel like he does a great job, distinguishing himself from, his peer, George R. R. Martin and his inspiration, J.R.R. Tolkien. I give this book a classic rating. I think it's really good, just like the other novels so far. So far, so good, right? 4 amazing novels so far, and the next one is another beastie book, The Fires of Heaven. This is Darcenovia, over and out. Have a great day, everyone, and see you guys next time with another review of a non-Star Wars novel. Later.